chocolate. Marmalade. Curry. Yuck! Grass flavour. Ugh! Liver. Curry.
Hey everyone, we continue ranking all Harry Potter games, as always with the help of my Stasocritic system. You can read more about it in the pinned comment. With 2003 not having any Harry Potter movie releases, it seemed like there would also be no tie-in games. But, with Harry Potter titles being as lucrative as they were, clearly Electronic Arts couldn't live a fiscal year without some games based on the license, and in this video we will check them out. As was mentioned in its entry, the PS2 Chamber of Secrets started out as a Philosopher's Stone game. This means that there were a lot of unused assets based on the first movie that were made during earlier parts of production. In 2003, Warthog Games was tasked to take those assets and make a new game out of them. And this time it's the same on all consoles it was released on, with the only considerable differences being the 60 FPS frame rate on Xbox and Gamecube as opposed to PlayStation 2's 30. This version of Philosopher's Stone has somewhat of a negative reputation, being mostly seen as a cheap copy of Chamber of Secrets with similar gameplay mechanics and a mostly reused Hogwarts map. But I don't think that assessment is fair. In terms of core gameplay, there have been some improvements in comparison to the PS2 version of Chamber. You now have a full 360-degree camera control, and spell targeting is much more comfortable, closer to how it worked in Eurocom's version of the second game. But the biggest improvement concerns level design. Chamber of Secrets had a very weird spell distribution. In Philosopher's Stone you have a smaller set of spells, 6 as opposed to 8, but each one is used far more across the game. And even earlier spell challenges have optional locations which you would need to access with incantations learned in the future, promoting replayability. I lamented how the levels in Chamber of Secrets lacked any sort of exploration. This is not the case in Philosopher's Stone. There's a bunch of optional challenge shields and wizard cards. And levels in Philosopher's Stone are also better from a thematic standpoint. For example, the challenge for the spell Spongify, which makes you jump very high, is appropriately designed around a central column that you have to keep climbing through different means, with a lot of explorable rooms you can visit on your way up. The Diffindo challenge from the Herbology class takes place in big, open areas, while the Incendio challenge is the opposite. There are a lot of enclosed spaces focused on avoiding fire. This makes every level feel distinct. Exploration within the Hogwarts castle has also been improved. While it is still about finding chests with wizard cards, most are actually hidden and you need to perform certain actions to make them appear. For example, by pushing a flipendo button that's behind a Diffindo carpet. It's not something that drastically changes the way you explore Hogwarts, of course, but it does make the process more engaging than just going from classroom to classroom and using spells on chests. I also can't help but admire the game's technical prowess. Through object streaming, it seamlessly connects the whole Hogwarts together, removing most of the loading screens from Chamber of Secrets. So there is much to appreciate about this game, but then you might find a chest in the middle of 4 imp cages in the dungeon, without any imps. Clearly, the intent was to put imps in this place and make the chest appear only after you cage them, but the project was rushed so it just stays there without a condition trigger among forever empty cages. And I suppose that's a good metaphor for what Philosopher's Stone is. This is not a game that lacked passion or talent, and there are plenty of interesting things to be found. I personally really appreciate Hagrid's Garden, a gradually unlocking area in which you have to find ingredients for Snape's potion lesson homework, and you can tackle that at any time you want before the due date. This is very cool. But then the same Hagrid's Garden will have Doxies who keep pestering you because they bugged out and Flipendo doesn't work on them anymore. Not only are there tons of bugs and unfinished aspects, some things are literally broken. Stealth segments were already not the best in the previous game, but here, if not for the invisibility cloak, it would have been impossible to complete any such sections. There is just absolutely zero consistency, and the prefects have ears like a hawk. What's worse is that they don't reset their position on failing, so you can make life more difficult for yourself while trying to run away. If Hogwarts could feel sort of dead in the previous PS2 game, it's even more dead here. And not only because the outside grounds are devoid of people or activities, but also because students inside the castle are very disturbingly static. Feels like a horror movie. So this is clearly a very rushed project. It's like characters barely pause between lines in their conversations because there was no time to add those pauses.
Hey, Harry! Hello, I'm Ron Weasley. I'm in Gryffindor too. It's no surprise, really. All my brothers are in Gryffindor. So, why do you think Professor Dumbledore put the third for out of bounds?
I really don't know.
Come on, we've got to follow that prefect.
It's odd because he usually gives us a reason why we're not allowed to go somewhere. I do think he might have told us prefects at least.
That prefect's Percy, my other brother.
How many brothers have you got?
Too many.
My name's Hermione Granger, by the way. And you are?
Ron Weasley.
Pleasure. You've got something on your nose. You must be Harry Potter. I know all about you, of course.
Look out! Filch's coming. We'd better go.
Though at least that's better than the overlap which happens when you pick up a bunch of beans in a row.
Tripe.
And even though the game's dialogues reuse a lot of lines from the movie, many narrative details are simply missing, which creates a somewhat disjointed tale, but at least there's enough to understand most of the setup. Despite the significant amount of issues, I would say that Philosopher's Stone is still a pretty nice game, which is why I will assign a Stasocritic rating of 64. Granted, enjoyment of Philosopher's Stone really depends on two things: how big is your tolerance for bugs, and how important for your engagement is solid level design. In my case, both are significant enough that Philosopher's Stone ended up being pretty enjoyable. But depending on your tastes, this might not be the game for you. I will literally ruin any possible enjoyment of this title by telling you about a game-breaking dominant strategy which you will discover sooner or later. But if you plan on playing Quidditch World Cup, skip both Quidditch entries, as in this case discovering that strategy later is obviously better. Developed by EA UK, Quidditch World Cup seems like a match made in heaven. EA has always been known for its variety of sports games, and the Harry Potter license, which it also owned back then, had its own iconic magical sports game. Opportunity just creates itself. That being said, we can't ignore the fact that Quidditch rules inherently don't make much sense. After all, Quidditch was created as a storytelling tool to have a special moment for the first-year Harry Potter, a magical talent that he would be really good at. So EA UK had a pretty complex goal of transforming a fictional sport with specific bias towards a certain position into an actually balanced experience. And for the most part, it was a success. The core gameplay revolves around you controlling chasers, the part of the Quidditch team responsible for scoring goals with a quaffle. Your and opposing team's actions fill up the golden snitch bar, and your chaser performance influences when and with how big of an advantage this golden snitch will come in. Only then you will start the Seeker gameplay where you have to catch the snitch to end the game and get 150 points. This actually creates a very enjoyable loop where getting the snitch might not win you the game if you didn't do anything during chaser gameplay, which is very fast-paced and exciting. It helps that you don't actually have to worry about the vertical axis at all. That part is handled by the game automatically, leaving the focus solely on intense moments, especially when the combo system is involved. If you hold down a trigger while passing, you throw the ball as part of a combo, and you need to pass it again quickly to continue the combo. The size of the combo greatly affects the amount that will be added to your snitch bar, but there's a catch. It is successful only if you score a goal at the end of the combo. If the quaffle is intercepted by a chaser or a keeper, the combo is interrupted and nothing is added to the bar. And normal goals don't fill up the bar at all, only combo goals do. In theory, this is the rule that makes the chaser part really matter, leading to some fun risk-reward combo scenarios. But I don't know why, as this doesn't really make sense and it must have been some sort of oversight, but simple passing also increases the snitch bar. This means that to win the game, you literally don't have to score a single goal, and it's enough to just pass the quaffle around.
Exactly where his teammates are and always finds them.
This is an effective strategy even on harder difficulty levels, since normal passes are safer than combo ones. Once that realization comes in, the game's ruined. Why would you do anything else other than passing the ball around until the seekers come in? Actually, there's a second really imbalanced factor. Increasing the snitch bar provides access to some really powerful special abilities, half of which can't be countered at all. You'd think that being this amazing, they should decrease the snitch bar as part of strategic decision making, but they don't, so there's literally no reason not to activate these abilities. Now, on their own, these flaws don't break absolutely the whole game, but only the tutorial Hogwarts Cup and single versus matches against CPU or a second player. Because when you actually start a World Cup, your position in this set of 18 games across the globe is actually based on the amount of points you get. So winning matches by just passing the quaffle around should actually be a detriment, as then you wouldn't get enough points to stay ahead. But again, there is a problem. Even on higher difficulties, the average amount of points each opposing team gets per match is not big enough to make the dominant winning strategy ineffective. If you're really unlucky, you need to play fair 1 or 2 times. Otherwise, it is better to quickly get to the snitch through passing the quaffle. Of course, you can try to abide by some sort of honor system and purposefully restrict yourself, but let's be fair, would that really be a sign of an enjoyable balanced experience? And it's such a shame, because at its core, Quidditch World Cup is a very fun and energetic game with some absolutely stunning playing fields and for the most part really good visuals. They can fall apart a bit on close-up shots, but those would happen often anyway. Incidentally, Quidditch World Cup has native widescreen support on consoles, which was pretty rare during that generation, and all versions except the PS2 run at 60 FPS. The Gamecube version also has a co-op mode where one player can connect their GBA to assist the Gamecube player by completing a beater minigame, but I wouldn't say that mode is significant enough for a separate Gamecube entry. It's ironic that after adding so many mechanics to make sure the sport doesn't crumble due to the imbalance from the source material, there are some aspects that make it succumb to an imbalance anyway. Based on the initial experience of the game, I can definitely say that Quidditch World Cup could easily get a Stanislav rating of 75 and even higher. It's just so exciting and joyful. But the existing dominant strategies are so easy to do and so detrimental to the game's design and its enjoyment that I will have to assign a score of 56. I suppose sometimes ignorance is bliss. Quidditch World Cup for GBA was developed by Magic Pockets, and it's a very faithful adaptation of the console title. Which means that just like in the console game, it's enough to just pass the quaffle around to really get ahead. At least special abilities actually spend your golden snitch bar, so there is some strategic choice there when it comes to the Seeker boost, but it's not enough to change the overall imbalance of the experience caused by the dominant strategy. However, unlike the console game, the controls here are actually somewhat sluggish and unresponsive, so even if balance issues would have been fixed, it still wouldn't be that fun to play. Quidditch World Cup for GBA gets a Stanislav rating of 41. It's an acceptable game, but has a pretty far way to go to reach the polish of the console title. Wait, that's it? Only 3 games discussed in the video? Yeah, the first version of the script contained more, but then I figured instead of having both pre-Year 3 and Year 3 games in one chapter, it will make more logical sense to have them separate, especially considering how 2003 was clearly a year that had a bunch of nice games that were ultimately rushed to have something Harry Potter related out there before the next movie. So it'll be interesting to compare if the Prisoner of Azkaban games that had some more time to stay in the oven would be able to capitalize on the success of the Chamber of Secrets game iterations. We'll find out in the next video.